All right, YouTube, this is Detroit's HPTV coming to you with another video. It's Monday morning, and we had a very traumatic and busy weekend because, of course, the attempt on Donald Trump's life, the media frenzy about it. But we're going to talk about another aspect. We're going to talk about, did the rhetoric and the demonizing and the vilification from the left create an atmosphere for this type of violence to happen? Because surely it's been even some reports that people are coming out saying that they want to call the guy that tried to shoot Trump a hero. We've been seeing TikTok talking about he shouldn't have missed. You've still been seeing a lot of rhetoric for people as if Donald Trump did something to them personally and they wanted to see him shot. But today we're going to talk about MSNBC and CNN and Joy Reid, chief pundits, chief propaganda machine of the Democratic Party. They were stoking the fires for months on end. I'm talking about their rhetoric was over the top. You know what I mean? If you calling somebody Hitler and a Nazi, you know what I mean? Who doesn't want to try to stop a Hitler with violence or whatever? So that's been the new debate. You know, you have people like Amanda Seals coming out saying it was staged, which was total idiocy because it happened in real time and two people lost their lives. But her saying that is almost like when Alex Jones from InfoWar was talking about Sandy Hook and he ended up getting sued for making those same type of statements. But the breaking news of the day is MSNBC with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski was canceled. They pulled the show and issued a statement that to the, well, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of the statement. The statement was the rhetoric that was from over there, they couldn't be sure that their guests or wouldn't be more negative rhetoric as it relates to the attempt on Donald Trump's life, which they know is a problem in this country right now. And they know they have to kind of turn the rhetoric down. So what we're going to see, what I'm going to show you is the last desperate speech that they did before this incident. And you got to see it and see how they were talking in the desperation because of Biden not being able to win or pulling out. And you're going to see the desperation of how they were talking, especially when, you know, you had Biden saying, put him in the bullseye, and they were saying this. We're going to see what actually allegedly made them pull the show for the day. We don't know if it's canceled for good, but it's canceled for the day. You won't be seeing Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. You won't be hearing their rhetoric today. So with their Trump derangement. Check out this last video, and you're going to start to think that how did the shooter get so close to Trump? Why wasn't he having the adequate protection? You think those thoughts, but then you realize that the Secret Service is still ran and directed by the Biden administration. The very head of the CIA, the Secret Service, that was the head of that team protecting Trump, used to be Biden's personal Secret Service officer. So it gets deep. But listen to this conversation that the Democrats was having right before the incident. This for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act, education and commentary, and the First Amendment. Listen to this.
The president to step aside, and the debate, you can hear it across the country.
You can hear it across the country. You definitely can hear it, Mika, across the party. You know, in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus said to religious leaders, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. Lincoln, with the specter of a civil war rising over slavery, quoted Jesus, a house divided against itself cannot.
I want you to pay attention how Joe Scarborough is using religion and the Jesus and how he's making this, he's building up, he's going somewhere. But why does he keep referring to Abraham Lincoln? You know, Abraham Lincoln was shot in the head by a Democrat. And he keeps making reference to Abraham Lincoln in his desperation and this undertone of religiosity. Listen what they saying and read between the lines.
Stand. Lincoln said, I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the House to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other. Lincoln encouraged his party in 1858 to stand together once again. Quote, 2 years ago, we did this under the siege of impulse of resistance to a common danger with every external circumstance against us. Lincoln's words then are all too relevant to the Democratic Party this morning. This morning, we report to you that there is a deep rupture running throughout the Democratic Party, a split tearing at the party's very foundation, a divide that's only going to serve to elect a man who's repeatedly promised to be a dictator on day one. President Biden is on one side of that Democratic divide.
Now, I'm going to let you hear the rest of it, but I want you to see how the media uses their theater and a dog whistle and how their rhetoric is dangerous, because he went with all this religion and all this democracy and Abraham Lincoln, that he said that Donald Trump is going to be a dictator as soon as he get in, and Joe Biden can't win. So the desperation is, what do we do? How do we stop him? Think about it.
We all know Biden supporters saved American democracy in 2020 by defeating a malignant force promising to undermine the Constitution itself, make common cause with America's enemies, and refuse to accept any Democratic election result that declared him defeated. President Biden endured the bloody aftermath of January 6 riots, the stealing of nuclear secrets and sensitive war plans by Trump, his calling for the execution of Joint Chiefs Chairman and the hanging of his own vice president, his writing that the Constitution should be terminated if that was required to overthrow election results. Against that grim backdrop, Mr. Biden passed more bipartisan legislation than any president this century. He created more jobs than any president this century. He led America out of COVID more strongly than any country on this planet, has overseen the strongest dollar in half a century and the strongest economic growth in the world. America's economy is the envy of the world.
We know all those was lies. We know what the inflation looks like. We know what the price of food is. We know what a dozen eggs cost and a loaf of bread costs. We know what gas costs. We know that we got inflation, but nobody has got raises. The wages are still the same. We know that the borders are open. We know all these things that you just said were lies. And you say Trump is a liar, but the villainization that you're doing, this is all dog whistling. It's not surprising that they pulled their particular show this morning. They're probably going to not let Joy Reid talk, because people's waiting to see how Joy Reid is going to respond when she's back in front of a camera, based on all the hateful rhetoric she's been spewing for the last months as well.
Period. Under Biden, our military and alliances are stronger relative to the rest of the world than any time since World War II. This, my friends, is not a matter of debate unless you get your news from hucksters on TikTok or on a cable news channel that is allergic to the truth. Despite what Donald Trump says, America is great, America is strong, and America is respected across the world. Joe Biden's leading a NATO summit this week that with Biden's leadership is now the strongest alliance in the world's history. Now, on the other side of this divide are many of the most powerful Democratic politicians, thought leaders, and donors. And they are all saying privately, and they may soon say this publicly, that Joe Biden cannot win this election. It is now almost a universal sentiment among the hundreds of Democrats who have spoken out over the last 36 hours, many of whom have called me and voiced these very real concerns. They say Democrats' poll numbers are collapsing, fundraising is drying up, and any chance of saving the Senate and House from Trump rule over the next 4 years is vanishing before their eyes. Two sides in this Democratic divide with two compelling arguments, but the window on saving American democracy is closing. Joe Biden is dug in.
What does that mean? The window, after everything else he said, the window of saving democracy is closing. And he gave you the numbers. And again, we have to ask, what's going on with Trump's security? And the DEI hires that he has protecting Donald Trump. When they asked for more security, all this is suspect. But this was their last call out.
He's got the votes. He's got the delegates. It is his rightful nomination. But also dug in are those who revere the president, but cherish American democracy even more. For them, this is a zero-sum game. That is why a handful of Democrats that President Biden greatly respects, Nancy Pelosi, Ted Kaufman, Jim Clyburn, Chris Dodd, John Kerry, Ron Klain, and his family, Jill, Val, and Hunter Biden, need to come together this weekend and talk about the consequences of this campaign and this candidacy on this country's future. Democrats have to unite against the immediate threat before America's 240-year constitutional republic is no more. Lincoln finished that 1858 speech telling his fellow party members, against strange, discordant, even hostile elements, we gathered from four winds and we fought the battle through under the constant hot fire of a disciplined, proud, and pampered enemy. Did we brave all then to falter now? Now when that same enemy...
The reason I wanted you to pay attention closely to what he said the enemy was rich and pampered. He's directing his rhetoric at everything about Donald Trump's character. He said he's pampered, a pampered enemy. He's making him seem like a danger and vilifying him, but he's always trying to make him seem like he's real distant from the common man, and that he is going to attack and punish the citizens of this country versus going at his political oppositions and the lawfare that was waged against him. They're pointing in a way that his wrath will be directed toward the public, whereas all his enemies are the pundits and the Democrats and them liberals over there.
Is wavering, disturbed, and belligerent? This result is not doubtful, Lincoln said. We shall not fail if we stand firm. We shall not fail if we stand together. Because so said Lincoln then, and so says a watchful and very worried nation now.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure.
It sounds to me that the liberals were worried. You know, this is one of the last shows that they did when they was talking to the Democratic Party. And if you read what they were saying, this dire emergency, the window of opportunity is closing, so to speak, as they get closer to the election. But ironically, the show was canceled today. They pulled it. Now we're going to see, like I said, it's going to be Joy Reid. You don't got to worry about the Roland Martins or the small potatoes or whatever on that propaganda machine, because they just were torn the company line with the rhetoric with Nazi, Hitler, Mussolini, he's a dictator, death camps, death squads. They actually did put the fear of God in a lot of Americans, and possibly that rhetoric can radicalize other Americans. So the tone coming from Biden is more apologetic. Even Al Sharpton got out there and got apologetic, because they know that now it has reached a violent level. It makes everybody less safe. Well, that's all I got for you for today. Sign you out of Detroit. This is Detroit's HPTV. Support Detroit's Black Thought and Action Collective, to nonprofit out of Detroit. It's always salute to the Patriots. Keep your head on a swivel for real at this point. Sign to you out of Detroit. Like, share, and subscribe. Salute.